Let me just explain about what the Institute of Directors is and kind of paint you a bit of a picture and then kind of tell you the story of it. So we have these premises on Pall Mall, which is a very grand building, and we've got these sort of huge pillars, and it's quite a sort of, it's a bit like Downton Abbey if you think of it like that. It's quite a sort of, it can be quite an intimidating environment. So the story starts 2 years ago. I was invited to go and see the Director General there, Simon Walker, who's kind of worked for the Queen, and John Major and all these great figures. And he said, the thing is, Jimmy, business has changed a great deal in the last 10 to 15 years. It's become about sort of having a cool, trendy workspace, about working in somewhere in Shoreditch with kind of open brick and wood, and and just what we're trying to provide for our members here, it's a bit different. And the vast majority of our members are white male and over the age of 50, and I kind of want you to come in and kind of help change the image and get some younger members in. And so, with that sort of enthusiasm, how could I not accept? So as I was sort of walking out and looking back at the building afterwards, I thought, blimey, the IOD really is in trouble if they think that I'm going to help them make them look cool. That's a real, we really do have a task to do here. So we did a few things. So we launched a new group called the IOD 99, where we invited founders under the age of 40 to come and join the Institute of Directors for £99. And we roll out that 99 a month. So we have 1,000 of those members, which is great because it's really changing the IOD from the inside. We also have a student membership program as well, which is something that you might want to think about, those of you that are students. We've got a stall outside that can kind of explain a bit more of that. But when it comes to the sort of policy area, what we're trying to drive, we have this royal charter at the IOD, which means that we have to kind of promote wealth creation and entrepreneurialism. So, that's the kind of driving force of everything that I do. And when it comes to the new economy side, there is this, we are living in a time of a twin revolution, that is akin to the Industrial Revolution. We're going through a digital revolution and an entrepreneurial revolution. And the fact is that sometimes, as British people, we like to sort of stereotype ourselves perhaps as a bit sort of inward-looking and sceptical of change, and we're not really the front of the pack. Actually, when you look at the statistics, it's just not true. So last year we had 600,000 businesses founded in the UK. That's more than we've ever had founded before. That's remarkable. In addition to that, when it comes to GDP this year, 12.5% of it will come from the internet economy. Okay, now, that stat sounds impressive. It's even more impressive when actually it makes us #1 in the world. Okay? But not only does it make us #1 in the world, we're #1 in the world by a long way. So the next country is South Korea on 8%. So we are over 50% ahead of our nearest competitor when it comes to this. That is remarkable. Actually, America's down on about 5.5%, the sort of, the great tech giant that we think of it. So I just kind of wanted to say that because these are remarkable statistics. But the other really troubling statistic, whilst you've got these things that are going on, is the fact that 51% of people believe that innovation is going too fast. So I'll say it again because I do think it's really striking. 51% of people believe that innovation is happening too quickly. Life is getting better too quickly. And that's, that's remarkable, but actually, when you think of black cab drivers, when you think of the Port Talbot steelworkers, these are people that feel like they're being left behind. And the sort of policymakers' reaction to this can be to kind of put up barriers, to stop innovation from happening. Whereas actually, that's not the case. You need to think of it the other way around. You need to think about how you can get those 51% of people, quite an ironic number, I think, given the last couple of weeks. Think of that, how you can get those people on site. How can we get them sort of benefiting from innovation? Because, of course, it's benefiting us. Now, let me say this, because, of course innovation benefits us. Think about when you were at school, quite often your teachers would say, you won't be able to take a calculator with you everywhere you go. Now, you see, that doesn't work as well with a younger audience. Normally at the IOD, that goes down very well, a sort of abacus. But actually, so you think about the access to the information that you have on your smartphones and so on. You call it the weapon of mass destruction. It's always very difficult when you speak at these conferences to make sure that as soon as somebody gets their phone out, that's it, you've lost them. So you have to really sort of concentrate on keeping them in. But it's remarkable that we have all this information available to us, but we need to think about how we get people benefiting from it and how to make them feel that they're benefiting from it. And I think we can discuss that a bit more.
Yes, definitely. Daniel, what are your thoughts on these?
Well, I'd say be careful about predictions, particularly about the future. That's quite a well-known quote attributed to Groucho Marx and many other people. I'm not quite sure who said it. But I think it is very true, because I think certainly, maybe not so much this week, post-referendum, but before that, there was a real sense that, you know, we as a society, and we young people in particular, not that I'm including myself in that category, but we can't really change things very much. We've just got to kind of ride with the tide and see what happens. And I don't think that's true. I mean, even if there was such a thing as a time machine, and I could go into the future, say 20 years in the future, and see what happened, and come back here and give the perfect prediction about how things might be like in 20 years' time, I don't think it works like that, because I think the future could be great, it could be fantastic, or it could be problematic. We could get into a prolonged period of stagnation. It's not fixed. I think that's the key thing to getting across. So I agree very much with Steve that if you look at the history, historically, you know, from the, you can debate the date, but around about 1800, on the whole, society has become much richer. People have hugely benefited from that, both in terms of, you know, life expectancy and education and standard of living, all sorts, pretty much every single metric. On the whole, we're way, way better off than we were in 1800. I really very strongly agree with that. Some people might contest it, but I think that's really true. But what I would also argue, and I don't think this at all, Steve may not agree with me, I don't know, but I don't think it contradicts what he said, is that I think the rate of change is slowing down. So if you look, for example, at productivity growth, so productivity, you know, being the amount a person produces, say, in 1 hour or 1 day, however you want to measure it, which is really fundamental to prosperity. If you look at productivity growth across the Western world, it's really slowing down. I mean, in broad terms, you know, the 70s were better than the 80s were better than the 90s, and so on. So yes, things are improving, but they're improving at a much slower rate than in the past. So we have a lot of excitement about, you know, social media and the internet and so on, and that's fine. You know, I'm into those things, I use those things. But I think one reason there's so much focus on those things in particular is you don't have a more general innovation, or at least not nearly enough innovation and productivity growth, as I would like to see. Now, clearly, there are lots of reasons for that, but I think one key reason, is that we've got a kind of very narrow mentality that has opened up. So maybe if you think about it, just to give one example before closing, if you think about energy, I mean, clearly a bedrock of prosperity is that we have enough energy. We have plentiful energy for everyone. But now we've created a mindset, certainly in the West, where rather than think about, okay, how do we, you know, create huge amounts of energy? Maybe we crack the problem of nuclear fusion, maybe we have different forms of atomic power, maybe we have cleaner forms of fossil fuels, whatever. But instead of thinking big, we're in a situation where we're encouraged to think small. You know, don't keep the TV on standby, turn the light off all the time, you know, recycle, all this kind of stuff, which, you know, maybe to a very limited extent has a place. Certainly if you're poor, you know, you're probably quite careful to switch the lights off if you want to keep your electricity bills down. But I think if we're going to have a great future with the kind of innovation that you were talking about, we really need to think a lot bigger, rather than just kind of looking at our navels, gazing at our navels, which I think is a real problem in contemporary society. So I want to leave you with a thought from a great authority, who's not Adam Smith, although, you know, clearly he's a very great authority, or Keynes, or Alfred Marshall, but Chris Coleman. Not everyone here will know who Chris Coleman is. Chris Coleman is the manager of the Welsh football team. And last night they beat Belgium, which is the second-ranked team in the world, in the Euro football championships to get into the semi-final. An incredible achievement, a real underdog. And what Chris Coleman said was that, you know, I've tried a lot of things, I failed in the past, but you've got to dream. You've got to have big dreams. That's how you're successful. And on that question, I think he's absolutely right. And people here, young people in particular, have got to kind of think big if we're really going to have a better future. The future is not fixed.